7-step code. I'm really excited to share this with you because I've been thinking about this a lot, about the framework, about what it takes to be peak performance. So let's dive in. Step one is hold a clear vision. This is very much a segue, but what I'm also excited about, what I've been creating positive change in, is I actually took this photo yesterday skiing, and it's really fun to be able to create these slides for you guys with, and I'm talking about connecting to nature and using ma nature's magic. And it's literally, I am very conscious about building this into my masterclasses and into our 30-day program, the magic of nature. We have where we are, so the now. So that is today. And then we have our future desired version of ourselves. And the key thing, which you guys probably know, is we want to close that gap between where we are today and that version of ourselves we want to bring into our reality. The best way and the most important way to do this, and you're going to have this in the workbook tomorrow, is to start to find out who is that version of myself? What do they identify as? What do they believe? What habits did they have to do to get there? And these tend to be questions we don't always ask ourselves. Or we look at what were their habits. So if we're looking at weight loss, for example, often that person knows I need to eat better and go to the gym or to train more. But we want to go deeper than that. We want to look at, okay, if you want to do those two things, what else did you have to believe in order to get there? What did you have to think in order to be that person? What did you have to, did I say think and feel to be that person? So we want to go into the layers beyond that surface level. I just need to do this habit. We also want to be thinking, where have we had resistance or blocks around? And what do we need to let go of and release? So, what burdens, what pain have we been carrying, suppressing, or avoiding that actually we need to start taking a look at? Because the desired future version of yourself is going to feel a lighter version of who you are than of who you are today, because we want to heal and release stuff that has been holding us back. Now, I have this little man in the corner to remind me to tell you a story about one of my clients called, we'll leave names out of it actually. And he literally just messaged me 2 days ago, being like, hey, you'll never guess what? I got a better job, being promoted, and I've got another pay rise. And this was so fun because we started working together a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we just did 3 months of coaching. So this is when we want to start to think about how quickly can change actually happen. And when we started, he was just not in a very good place. He was stuck in a grief pattern from the last few years from when his mum died. He was feeling like a failure as a father, as a parent, and as a partner. He was stuck in a career he really disliked, earning not very good money, and he was always comparing to his wife, who ran a very successful company. And what we did was look at, who do you want to be? And he was like, I want to have like maybe a 5K pay rise. And I was like, let's go a bit further and get you 10. So who is this 50K version of yourself? What did they have to do, think, believe, feel, and all that kind of thing? Who are they? And then how can you step into that version of yourself every single day? So all of a sudden, we went from a lack of clarity to a lot of clarity. And that enables us to start realizing, well, now it's easier. We know the steps we need to take to be that version of ourselves. We can close the gap much quicker. And within a year, he'd landed a job, a new job, company he loved, much better positive working environment. And he got a 22K pay rise. And within another year, he's got another promotion with an even better pay packet. And this is a very short amount of time, and it was something he didn't believe was possible. But because we put in that belief that he can be this person, that he can achieve these things, every day we were able to do that 1% change that then added up to this big change and transformation in his life. And I want you to start thinking, what is one thing I need to identify as in order to be that version of myself? So for him, for example, he had to be 50K Bob. So I am 50K Bob. I just watched Rowan Atkinson, which is why Bob is now on my mind, and it sounds hilarious when I'm saying it. But that is an identity. An I am statement is an identity statement. So it's how we really think about ourselves when we come to just how important identities are in just a moment. So just have a think, what one identity is going to serve my future version? So it could be I am a great leader, because maybe we've been doubting ourselves around that. Or I am a brilliant athlete, or I am getting better and better every single day at my sport. It can be absolutely anything. It could just be that I am a person who loves my life. On the flip side, if we look at what I see, where I see identities holding those back, is when we say I am an anxious person, or I am a person with a chronic illness. I am not, I'm a bad leader. And these identities we really want to become aware of and start to create change around, because they are influencing your reality in an unhelpful way. The next one we want to look at is, what did that future version of yourself have to believe? So what one belief in the next 30 days would you love to let go of, or would you love to install? Now, beliefs can show up in different ways, and we're going to cover that in the next 30 days. Very simply, I believe this about myself. So when we look at our future version, I believe, and identities and beliefs can be similar. So I believe I'm a great leader, or I believe I can succeed in my in this area of my life. I believe I can lose weight. I believe I can win this race. So you want to be thinking, what one belief does this version of myself have? Or what one belief do they not? So maybe you don't believe change can happen quickly. Maybe you believe actually change can happen very slowly and it's going to be really hard for you and it may not happen. These are the kind of beliefs we want to start watching out for, these sticky things that can trip us up. And then I want you to think about, what one self-talk phrase or word do you not want to let pass you? And we're going to cover this again in the next one, in the next step. But just start thinking about this future desired version of yourself, and what one phrase would they think or not think? So maybe, for example, when I had chronic fatigue syndrome, I was always like, "Ugh, I'm so tired." So for me, tiredness, that's not in my future. Energy was calm energy. Maybe you think of yourself as a negative person or a pessimist, and you want to remove that belief but start talking to yourself more positively. Maybe there's like a catchphrase you have that you say to yourself, or it could be very simple. When someone goes, "Hey, how are you?" and you go, "I'm okay," you could actually say, "I'm great," or you could be honest. I don't know it in Norwegian, but I did learn a phrase which I kind of love and literally summed up 2024 for me, is I am standing up, but I am not crying. And I was like, I love that phrase because it's sad and funny at the same time. And then I learned that my mechanic says it all the time, which is also a little bit sad. But I like how that is a common phrase that can describe how we are feeling. And the last one is, what habit or what one behavior would you like to change or stop doing or start doing in the next 30 days? So this could be that you want to have a more consistent bedtime, or you want to get up at 7, or when the alarm goes off, you just want to wake up and feel excited for the day ahead. Or maybe you want to eat more vegetables every day. Can be anything, but just think, what does that future desired version? We want to start to really roadmap that version of you out. And we go into more details in the workbook you'll get tomorrow. And then you want to be thinking, how can you every day step into that version of yourself? For example, I have the best boss ever mug down here because I have a client at the moment who does not have the best boss ever. So that mug made me chuckle. And we have been doing work around how, or what, when met with a challenging situation with this toxic person, with her toxic boss, how can she still step into her personal power and show up as her best self in those challenging situations? So, being our desired future version, we can look at all the ways it's going to be marvelous and fantastic, and our life is going to be full of unicorns and rainbows. But also, looking at our future version, we can be thinking, how do they handle challenging situations? And my client wants to stay in her job because she really enjoys her team and she believes the company can succeed. So, it's really important that we start to experiment and really fine tune strategies that enable her to step into that version of herself every day. So, this could be through self accountability, which we cover in one of the steps, or it could be using a specific strategy. So, maybe one which I love is putting a protective shield around you just so you can feel energetically and physically safe when we're in an emotionally unsafe environment. So that can be one thing that is really helping her at the moment. So it can be very small things that we do that enable us to step into our future version and do it more on an unconscious basis through our different habits. So maybe it's just simply getting ready for tomorrow. So your gym bag is ready. So what we do is grab your gym bag and you go. If I want to ski tomorrow, which I do, all of my ski stuff will be packed. So then I just get up, grab it, and put it in the car, and then we just go. So it's that simple thing that's going to set me up for me to step into my best self. Hope that makes sense. Step two, mastering your self talk. This here, the guy in white is called Alan Hovda. He is a Norwegian triathlete. This was taken some years ago now, actually, at the top of a mountain called Gaustatoppen in Norway, and the views are absolutely amazing. When I first started working with Alan, he described his language as whip language because it was so unhelpful and unperformance derailed unperformance enhancing, that's not a word, it derailed his performance. So he'd be running and then he'd hit this wall and it'd be this pain barrier and he would just be beating himself up. So even when he had a 20-minute lead in this race, he was like, I'm going to fail, I'm too slow, I'm really bad at this, I'm in so much pain, I'm never going to win, I'm going to lose. And this was all of his narrative. So he lost his 22-minute lead to less than 2 minutes. Now, we worked on him mastering his self-talk for a year, and the results were absolutely outstanding. Suddenly, he was breaking the Norwegian Ironman course record twice. He was knocking 5 minutes off his Norseman time, which he'd already competed in 10 times and won 3 times. He came second at the World Championships for extreme triathlon, and he took a whopping 40 minutes, sorry, off his another race record, and set a new course record at the same time. And he was first out of the water for the first time in his career. And these results really came from him changing his self-talk. So when he noticed he was going into that whip language again, where he was thinking to himself how badly he was performing, we ensured he changed it to, I'm actually doing really well. I'm feeling strong. I'm feeling comfortable. I can keep going. I'm strong. I am doing the best I can. And we switched his focus from winning or losing to just showing up as his best version. And that looked like he was having that performance enhancing language. He was talking to himself constantly in ways that served him. And the results speak for himself. And he's since done incredibly well. I actually can't believe this was almost, 6 years ago now. It's crazy. So it's really important we master our self-talk to, yeah, an athlete can get incredible results, but actually we can have a happier life. And he finished his races feeling satisfied with his performance because he knew he was able, like he just laid everything out on the course every time, which is what he wanted. And when we are stuck in this unhelpful feedback loop, it always, not necessarily always, 9 times out of 10, it starts with your thoughts. It starts with your language. We might be thinking all of the things that could go wrong with the situation. We can compare ourselves to others. We can think that we're a stressed person. We're not good enough. We're going to fail. I can't do this. And all of these unhelpful thoughts create or activate more feelings associated with this unhelpful language. More thoughts create more feelings, create more thoughts. And then what happens is these stuck thoughts or these unhelpful thoughts then influence your choices, decisions, behaviors, and experiences because you are acting from these thoughts and feelings. And then what happens is we see ourselves acting in a certain way, and then we have more unhelpful thoughts and more unhelpful feelings because we're beating ourselves up or we're proving to ourselves that I told you it was going to fail. Of course it did. Of course, this always happens to me. I can never do this, or I'll never be good enough, or I'll always be stressed. There's no other option. I'm just this anxious person, and there's nothing else for me to do about this. And then that activates our neural pathways. So then they get better, faster, and stronger at their job. And that could be creating anxiety, creating not good enough, creating things around failure, because your brain is rebuilding itself for you to think, feel, and act in these automatic ways. So your future becomes a return of your past. And you can even, and this sounds a bit strange, but you can even get addicted to these kind of feelings. It can become comfortable and familiar to you. And you can see this in people who really dig their heels in when it comes to creating change, because this is safe. Although it sucks, it's safe. And creating change can be scary and it's uncomfortable. So this is our stuck feedback loop. And you might already start to think, yes, I can see how maybe I can be, sometimes I can get in this loop. And I want you to stop, break that, blow that all apart, and enter the thriving feedback loop. And the reason I used stop is because that is one of the best words you can use to start creating change. When you notice an unhelpful thought come in, you can say stop. And that powerful word will give you pause and time to think, what do I want to think and feel instead? It gives you choice. And that's really important because then we can start to think, actually, I'm getting stronger and more confident at this thing. You're thinking about all the reasons and all the things that actually this situation could go very well. You're thinking how great you are or how you're getting better and better at something. You're thinking, actually, I can overcome this because of X, Y, and Z. I can do this. I have got this. I am a capable person or I am a nice person. And these thoughts activate more helpful feelings. They then influence your choices, decisions, behaviors, habits, actions, responses. That creates more feelings and thoughts. So suddenly, life and performance enhancing stuff is flooding out into your life. And then this is influencing your brain. So now your brain is rewiring for you to think, feel, and act in this new performance and life enhancing way. These neural pathways are getting stronger. So it's easier and more natural for you to think, feel, and act in this way. And then you get into this wonderful, thriving feedback loop. And this is why it's so important to start to master your self talk so you can move yourself out of stuckness or out of just less than brilliant situations into feelings, into thoughts that actually empower you, inspire, energize, and help you to create a life you love. So, what one thought, we covered this in the earlier slide, but just to really, now you've heard a little bit more, is just to really think, what one thought will you not let pass you by in the next 30 days? So, what one unhelpful thought do you want to become really aware of so you can stop it? Because we need to become aware of how we're thinking in order to start being like, oh, wow, actually, I'm thinking really good. Or actually, I want to change this. So just think, what one thing, what one thought do I want to stop now in the next 30 days? Oh, thank you. Yes, that's it. Let me just Google Translate. That's okay. I can half understand your sentence, but my Norwegian is sadly not very good, as I mentioned earlier. I'm I always am too optimistic. Thank you so much for sharing. Oh, yes, now I can. Yeah, okay. Sorry, now I'm just processing that's what your Norwegian sentence said. So what's really interesting is when we start to look at words, and I already picked myself up on saying always. And if you listen to my latest Instagram reel from today, I also coached myself out of saying always in that. And always often indicates a belief because we're giving it a time parameter. So when we say always, I said I always undercharge. This means, if we take the sentence literally, that there is never a time when I charge my value. And that's what, as a business owner, I want to be doing. I want to be charging my value. So when I said that sentence, A, it was incorrect, but B, it's indicating there is still a belief there that maybe I don't believe I'm good enough to charge my value. And this is where we can start to dissect our language and also start to change it. Because when we are always at something that's unhelpful, it means there isn't another option for us to respond or to act or behave in a different way. So we want to start noticing where we're saying always and actually maybe want to say sometimes, because this is where the brain can also play tricks on us. Because I guarantee you there was at least one time when our optimism maybe dipped a little bit. Maybe it just went from a 10 out of 10 to a 9 out of 10. And that's when we want to start spotting the change, because we can start to break down that belief that this thing always happens. So it's really good to start thinking start to remove always from the vocabulary, I usually suggest, and then we'll start to think, what do I want to think and believe or be instead? And if we're getting stuck around evidence, and I've completely been there myself, whereas look at all this evidence though, our brain is highlighting to us all of those times because this has been our narrative. So we then have to very consciously go back in time and start to really spot even the smallest thing when we weren't optimistic or when we didn't overcharge. And I have examples of when I've charged my worth. My brain is still just skipping over it sometimes. So it's important to go back and be like, when did I not do that thing? Or when did it maybe just dip from a 10 to a 9? When did I have energy? Because we don't want to always be doing something that is unhelpful. We want to start to break that pattern down. So I hope that makes sense. I have the chat open now. Okay. Step 3. Oh, very appropriate. Breaking free from limits. So we have a hierarchy of change, or a pyramid of change. My friend said that he loves the pyramid, so here we are. Although I had the pyramid before, but for some of you I know it will be, maybe you like this better than a bar chart or something. So at the top of our pyramid of change, we have identities, then we have beliefs, and then we have thoughts, behaviors, and habits. Now, what often happens when we start to want to create positive change in our life, and what a lot of the teachings from various experts is around thoughts, behaviors, and habits. They always start at the bottom. Again, I'm just going to use the fitness industry as an example because it's the easiest one. Because people are always, oh, I'm doing it again, people are often creating a narrative that if you're not losing weight, it's because you're not trying hard enough. You should just go to the gym more. Or if you do want to lose weight and you're doing well, it's because you're going to the gym more. It's because you train a lot. It's because you eat really well. And they just think in order to lose weight, to get fitter, it's as simple as doing one of those two things more. But where we can have a lot of resistance and challenges and blocks, and where some people find it much harder than others, is because there will be a belief and or identity guiding or kind of influence how much and how easy it is for them to create change. I've had two clients in the last couple of years, and one of them came out, she had knee surgery, and she was told that unless she lost weight, the rehab is completely pointless. So then that created stuff for her. And another client wanted to, it was like her goal was to lose weight for that year. And that she'd always struggled. It'd been a lifelong thing, grown up in an overweight family and just really struggled. And for both of these clients, we went layer by layer and we looked at, okay, what are your identities around who you are that is influencing your relationship around your body, around food, and around training? Because often we can also get stuck in this belief that if I look a certain way, then I will love myself more. And again, that's an unhelpful belief to have. So they really come up and pop up in all kind of forms and areas. And you want to be, it's like a domino effect. If you change an identity, often that will domino down or ripple out into beliefs, thoughts, behaviors, and habits. Because suddenly, if you stop identifying as a fat person or an overweight person, which clients have identified as, and you start to identify as a sexy athlete, which they then chose, which I love, then all of a sudden it becomes much easier to be an athlete because that is who you are. I've had a client believe that they've had a fat gene, highly intelligent person. I was like, do you believe that there is a fat gene? And if you have it, your only option is to be overweight? And she was like, the moment I said it, I realized how ridiculous it was. But this belief had governed almost 50, 60 years of her life. And that belief influenced her choices and decisions every single day. So it's really important that we start to look at what identities and beliefs are limiting you. How can they be healed? Sometimes it's just acknowledging them. And then what do we want to believe and identify as instead? And how can we start stepping into that? How can we start making them our reality? The triathlete I mentioned earlier, Alan Hovda, this may seem, it seemed insane to me. I couldn't believe it when he told me this, and maybe you'll have the same reaction. But he said to me that I am a slow swimmer. And I was like, Alan, you're a professional triathlete. You're insanely quick. Like you are fast. And he was like, no, I'm a really slow swimmer. So we had to break this belief and identity down because it was I am, and then all the different reasons why he believed he was. So the first thing we did was to open the door to change, was to compare his swim times to other athletes, pro athletes' swim times, especially those he competed against. And suddenly he was like, huh, maybe I'm not that slow actually. And I was like, no, maybe you're not. And then we started to look at when did these beliefs form? And it was when he started to learn to swim. And so what we did is it was a very challenging situation. So we healed that kind of emotional trauma around that time because he taught himself and there was a almost drowning incident and stuff like this. So we healed all of that for him. And the next day, he was first out of the water for the first time ever in his career in a pro race. This is how powerful it can be to change your identities and beliefs and how quick of an impact it can have. Because suddenly believing and knowing he was a fast swimmer meant that he think, acted, and felt a fast swimmer. So when he's thinking about the swim, he's thinking how great it's going to go. He's thinking how strong he is, how brilliant he is. He's focusing on his technique. During the swim, his mindset is honed on how great he is, how powerful he is, how strong, how fast he's going. He's really in the moment and focused on performance. So of course, you perform better. You become faster. This is why it's really important that when we look at creating change, we're not always looking at thoughts, behaviors, and habits. We're also looking at beliefs and identities. And it can be a very simple question to ask ourselves is what belief is governing this behavior? Or what do I believe about myself around this behavior or around this thought? And then, well, why do I believe that? And sometimes there's an exercise called the five whys, and this is in our 30-day program. And it can just be like, why do I believe this? Why do I believe this? Why do I do this? Because we want to go down deeper from the surface level stuff. Because the first thing that comes to our mind is often the kind of the thing that we tell ourselves, oh, it's just the way I am because it is, or oh, that's because of, I can't think of a good example. But the first thing we say often isn't the thing, it's the thing that protects us from knowing what the thing is, if this makes sense. You want to be thinking, we have our 30 days, we're going to set our, I forgot to put a goal setting at the beginning of the masterclass. So we're going to set our 30-day goal tomorrow. And then be thinking, where do I need to create change first? Because if your goal is to create a pay rise, for example, maybe you want a new job in 2025, or you want a new adventure to complete, or whatever your goal may be. Think, actually, where do I need to create change first? Because often we might be thinking it's around a habit, but maybe actually we need to change an identity or belief for the habit to become an effortless and easy extension of who we are. Okay. So, step four is aligning your habits and behaviors. So, again, we have our future desired version of ourselves. We are here now. We want to be thinking, what habits did they do and didn't they do to achieve that version of themselves? How did they behave and how didn't they behave to achieve that version of themselves? And we're often thinking, oh, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and our list can come insurmountable about all the things we need to do. But it can also, maybe the most powerful thing for you to focus on is one thing to stop doing. Maybe the one thing to stop doing is scrolling on Instagram or binge watching Netflix. Maybe that's just your one focus for the next 30 days because you know your future version of yourself isn't addicted to tech. Maybe one thing that you want to start doing is protecting 20 minutes during your work hours to go outside and just go for a walk and soothe your nervous system. I once again have some icons in the screen to remind me of stories. One of my clients is doing so amazing, and she knows that the future version of herself prioritizes one of her favorite hobbies, which is karate. So now, karate on a Tuesday and a Thursday is a non-negotiable for her. And this is a big thing. She has a really hectic job, and we're reducing her doing stress around it, but it's just a fast-paced, high-pressure environment. So we can't change the environment, but we can change the way she responds, and she has a family at home. Now, we often forget this, but in order to show up as our best self for the ones we love, we need to look after ourselves first so we can give them more of our love and energy and a better attitude and mindset. And she is able twice a week now to go to karate, and once a week is like the bare minimum. So she is now protecting that time, and she's already gone up a belt, which is super cool. Another client of mine knew that the desired future version of herself lived in Barcelona and ate healthy. And also, we want to then look at what does healthy look for you. So she defined what healthy was. And then it was looking at, okay, where am I now and how do I get there? And for her, it was going back a step and we looked at beliefs and identities and healing that. And then the next day, she was like, oh, like eating healthy is actually really enjoyable for me now. So that was one thing she wanted to become more conscious around, was eating better and eating food that really supported herself and her family. And then eventually it was like, I want to live in Barcelona. I want to move the whole family there. My partner wants to do that as well. And road mapping out, how is that possible? And then they were able to do that. So we can do it for small things and for big things. They did it much more like they planned stuff, whereas I just was like, I want to live in Norway. So I moved here and just assumed it would all work out. So far, so good. But it is thinking like this desired future version. For me, I wanted to be around a community of skiers that loved to do rando and loved to socialize. And I just wasn't finding that in Yilo. So then I moved to Songdal, where I knew a few people. So that took me 6 months to do, I think, in the end. So having this version of ourselves means that we can start actually working out what steps do I need to take to make this possible. It's not just a daydream anymore. It can actually be a real thing that happens. And then we want to commit to self accountability. So, this is a game changer for my clients. They love self accountability, whether it's once a week or every single day. That client who got 50K pay rise and now has another wonderful pay packet coming along his way, we did it every single day. So in the morning, before he started work, he'll sit at his desk and be like, how will I be focused? What 1 to 3 things will I do to stay focused today? What 1 to 3 tasks are my priority today? And how will I not, I think maybe it was like, if I start to procrastinate, what will I do next? Because although we're looking at how can we step into this amazing version of ourselves, research has also shown, it was a really interesting study actually, The Power of Habit, highly recommend, brilliant book. And one of the studies in there was around those who had hip replacements. And it was shown, they used the group who always had the worst recovery. And they showed that if they had a plan around if they came to a pain point and they knew how to get around that pain point, that they would perform better and recover at this amazing or brilliant rate. So it's really important when we do our accountability is to point our brain in the right direction to set ourselves up for success and also to know, okay, actually, I usually procrastinate or I get really tired around this time. What can I do when I hit that snag? How can I jump over that pothole? Another really great thing about self accountability is it means that we're not reliant on others to tell us how well or how badly we are doing. This is really external validation, relying on others. It can be a necessary part of our work or our life, but it's really important to stand in your power, be responsible for yourself, and start to look at your own reality, become self aware to yourself so you can actually be more rooted or grounded in how well you're doing. So you can, that's not what I'm trying to say, but sometimes we get all these opinions thrown at us that aren't necessarily which aren't necessarily true. Is that person's version of truth, not necessarily your own? When you have self accountability, you can pick and choose what is helpful to bring into your reality and what isn't. So you want to be thinking, how can I keep myself accountable to this version of myself? So if you want to lose weight, my client decided that the one thing she had to do every day was review her food plan. And at the end of the day, she'd review on a scale of 1 to 10, how well did I stick to my food plan? Okay, it was an 8. How can it be a 9 tomorrow? So we're able to constantly, or that sounds like a boring word, consistently step into the best version of ourselves. And we're able to become aware of when we've jumped off the bandwagon, we can get ourselves back on much quicker. And remember that peak performance, it's a journey. Being accountable to ourselves is a big part of that journey to becoming our best self, which is always an evolving and ever growing person. So I hope that makes sense. We're going to do weekly accountability in in the Rise of the Wild Woman in the 30-day program. So you'll also get to understand the kind of questions that you need to be asking yourself because your accountability needs to be pointing your brain always in the right direction, in the direction you want to go in. And remember how your words impact your reality, impact your brain. You want to be using the right words in your accountability to get the results you want. So, one athlete, a pro athlete, I remember reading years ago, I was horrified, was rating multiple times a day injury pain on a scale of 1 to 10. And the problem with this is that you're now activating the pain response. And the more you activate the pain response, the more pain you're feeling. And if you are realizing that you're always on an 8, a 9, or a 10, your brain is thinking nothing but pain, and you will be in nothing but pain. So it's really important, instead of asking how much pain are you in or how much pain am I in, you want to ask how much discomfort am I in? Because the brain just hears comfort. And then you can actually help yourself recover better and to put yourself into a more relaxed nervous system, which will only help recovery as well. So you want to be asking yourself the right powerful questions to get the results you want. And sorry, I'm going a bit faster because I realize I'm running a bit over time. The next step is celebrating every milestone. We forget to do this, and it's probably the most funnest part of peak performance is we can celebrate ourselves. Smaller, the better. You might be thinking I'm talking about celebrating those big, huge goals when we get the promotion. But actually, I ask my clients every week, what three or more things have you done well this week? And then they write them all down. And what is really cool is I ask for three things, and sometimes they might struggle just to put one thing down. But the more they work with me, the more they start to train their brain to look at all of the wonderful and amazing things they are doing, the more they are able to write down because they are training their brain to look for these amazing moments that happen in your life and also create more of them. And then it's thinking, how can I celebrate this? So it could be like, what amazing things I do well this week. It could be that you actually prioritized your tasks really well. It could be that you sent an uncomfortable email that you didn't really want to send, but you did it anyway. It could be that this is such a silly thing, but I actually celebrated this with a friend who stayed with me the other day. And I have a mouse infestation. I live in this huge farmhouse. Then they've got smart guys. They're not going in the traps, and I hate killing them, but apparently peanut butter is the way to go. Anyway, I ran out of kitchen paper weeks, 2, 3 weeks ago before Christmas, and the shops here haven't been open, blah, 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 blah. So I finally, about 3 weeks later, because we kept forgetting every time we went out, I finally bought kitchen paper. And the silly thing is I bought a lot of kitchen paper, so I'd never run out again. And I took a picture and I sent it to him. And this is a little way we can celebrate our progress because it's just creating more momentum. It's a funny thing. It's creating moments of joy. And it's, yeah, I did that. And it could be these little things that make the difference between being our old self and then being our great self. And also, it shows that it showed me as well that I'm not in survival mode anymore. Because if I was still operating in survival mode, I would still not have kitchen paper. But I was able to make a list, and sounds so ridiculous if you've never been in that position, but I was able to make a list and I was like, oh, I'm going past the shop, I can stop and get kitchen paper. So it's the small things that can really add up. We have this compound interest effect. So this 1% change is what we're looking for. And we want to be training our brain every day by celebrating and honoring our progress. And it could be with a great cup of coffee. It could be you treat yourself to chocolate, or maybe at the end of the week, you take your family or loved one out for dinner or to a fun thing you want to do. Maybe if I have different ways I celebrate depending on how great the thing is. And I'm about to buy myself fluorescent or almost fluorescent pink ski poles for launching the Rise of the Wild Women with over 100 people have signed up, which is freaking amazing. I'm so excited to have you all here. So this is how you can celebrate in different ways. And then I love buying like clothes and stuff for the big things because then every time I use my ski poles, it's wow, I did this thing. I did that, which is really cool. And it is all about the journey. It's not about the destination. We have to enjoy our life along the way and remember to play and to laugh and to love, as corny as that sounds. And the final step is connecting to nature. I'm not going to go into why you need to connect with nature. I feel we're all here because we know it's amazing and it's super fun. What I would like you to think about is more how can you connect to nature and how can you get outside every day and have fun? Because often when we're doing stress, when we're doing unhappiness, when we're doing just life can be a bit crap or just challenging, this is the first thing to go. But actually, it should be the first thing that stays is prioritizing our self-care. And nature is so important for this. And it could be that you just want to get out, you just protect 20 minutes of your day just to get out into nature, to go for a walk, to ground yourself. Maybe you go barefoot, maybe you connect to the plants, but just to become more present in nature because it really soothes down your nervous system. And also, we can have fun in nature as well. We don't have to go on these like mega ski trips all the time, but it could be just outside my door, me and Wolfie will play for 20 minutes with a football. I mean, she did run off and chase some cows the other day, which was not great. And that was stressful. But on the whole, we have fun playing outside. So you just want to be thinking, how can I connect with nature on a way that aligns with my future self? Because it is thinking about, instead of thinking of this future self, which I should have mentioned earlier, instead of thinking of this desired future version of yourself so far in the distance, you want to be thinking, what can I do to actually embody them today, which I did mention earlier, but they don't have to be so far off. Maybe your future version spends 20 minutes every day in nature. You can do that tomorrow. You could do that tonight. So, this is how we want to start to think. And that is my 7-step code to peak performance. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys think. You do get the workbook as well tomorrow. Do we have any questions, any thoughts? Thank you, Ellen, for writing that. When we are high achievers, we often think that progress comes in doing. But when we're looking at the mindset and brain work, and we're thinking about the life and the version of ourselves we want to create and step into, a lot of the progress can come from thought. It can come from walking out in nature with no purpose but to think about things. So it's actually a really important part of our journey, and part of peak performance is to think and not necessarily do. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you guys later.